Hello everyone, in this video let's learn about the world wars and social security. First we will see the progress of 20th century and then we'll see the disaster that created. We will then see the two world wars and the world organization that created during the World War period. Then the mass production of clothes and its effects on society. Then the part that's played by the educational institution. Then the changes that occurred in fashions of dress. Then the difficulty in getting domestic servants. Then the nationalization of the Bank of England. And lastly, the successful governments. When we closely observe the first half of the 20th century, it was a period of great progress everywhere, especially in England if we see. The development of science and technology helped a lot to make man's life more easy and comfortable. It was in the first quarter of the century, for the first time in the history of mankind, the First World War was fought. The First World War gave devastation effects to human lives and it paralyzed the normal life of people all over the world. The then Prime Minister of USA, Woodrow Wilson, he established the League of Nations. It is believed by the people that this existence of League of Nations would help them to prevent the recurrence of war. With 20 years in travel, there was another war which was fought for another 6 years, and this war ended in the year 1945. After the Second World War in the year 1945, there was establishment of more comprehensive and effective world body, namely the United Nations Organization. This was meant to act as a mediator between warring nations. The Second World War is always seen and described as a war of liberation because it brought to end the colonial rule and paved the way for many nations to become independent, which enjoys full sovereignty. It was then on, the age-long imperialism was gone and a new era of democracy was formed. Now let's see the effects of the world wars. We'll be looking at the social leveling up and the debt duty. Both First and the Second World War brought about great changes both in England as well as abroad. One of the effects of the First World War was the social leveling up. Social leveling up means it is to raise the economic and social conditions of one part of a society or country so that they are equivalent to those in wealthier parts. If the government is to level up the economy, then it needs to tackle this major economic problem. So after the wars, the status and the class feeling was not so acute as it was before. This was because the soldiers from different class and ranks, they shared the common camp life during wartime. Because of this, the wealthy upper class could no longer enjoy all their luxuries because the state has imposed many taxes like the death duty. Slowly, the upper class, they lost the social and political leadership which they had been enjoying for generations. Another thing that helped the social leveling up was the mass production of clothes. This mass production of clothes, it enabled the working man's wife to follow the fashions of the ladies of rank. This improved purchasing power and also allowed the working man to buy ready-made suits. Similarly, even the educational institutions played an effective role in realizing the social goal of a classless society. During the post-World War period, the sons of workers were found in increasing numbers as scholars and students in Oxford, Cambridge, London and other universities. And this practice of scholars and students studying in universities were decreased after 1919. And after that, it is observed that students from middle and upper class joined the British universities for their education. The post-World War, it marked the revolutionary changes in the fashions of dress. Women's dresses were no longer designed to conceal feminine charms. Petticoats and ankle-length dresses gave way to transparent undergarments and skirts reaching only up to the knees. Similarly, smart young men wore Oxford bags, shapeless balloon like trousers, which covered practically the entire shoe. The major problem of post war faced by the upper class is that they found difficult to get a domestic servant. This was mainly because of the trend of working class women to move from domestic into factories and offices. And naturally enough, the lawmakers and doctors' wife had to do a great share of domestic work than they had been required to do before the war. The Second World War, which changed the face of the earth, also brought a change in the people's way of life and thinking. After the Second World War, the successive British governments, it attempts to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. The successive governments of Britain established the grand old theory of laissez-faire. This was given up and the state embarked upon an ambitious and bold policy of nationalization. The existing Bank of England was taken from its 17,000 stockholders, who were duly compensated, and put under the control of a board of governors appointed by the government. Coal, gas, wireless, and air transport were similarly brought under the state control. The state control was exercised in the agricultural methods and marketing, in the establishment of factories and the supply of raw materials. Soon as the Second World War, a general election was held in 1945 and the Labour Party with Clement Attlee as Prime Minister came into power. This Labour Party government under Clement Attlee passed a number of acts to ensure social security and welfare for the majority of people of the country. According to the Family Allowance Act, an allowance was given to families with 2 or more children of school-going age. Followed by this, in 1946, the National Insurance Act was passed, according to which the contributions by workers and employees were raised. By this, the worry of the middle class reduced about an uncertain future. Another bold step established by the Labour government was that it undertook the passing of the National Health Service Act. Free medical help was available to all except a few. For example, the treatment for optical and dental, the patients were expected to give a certain percent of cost. This system was a boon to millions of people, and needless to say that it helped to improve the health of the general public. A third benevolent act which the Clement Attlee's government passed was that the National Assistance Act. The duty of this National Assistance Board was that it has to supplement the income of needy families. By doing this, more people were given educational facilities. In 1950, the Labour Party, that is Clement Attlee's governance, went out of power. Even then, the successive Conservative governments followed the policy inaugurated by the Labour Party. To be specific, the Conservative ministry under the leadership of Anthony Eden, he sets up the slum clearance scheme, and afterwards the Macmillan ministry, it sets up the housing corporation. And these are the ways the successive governments of Britain prepared England to become a welfare state. Hope this video helped you to know about the events and actions happened after the World Wars and the various steps and measurements taken by the governments of Britain. Meet you in the next video soon. Thank you.